After my dad's funeral, my brother stood in front of everyone and said, "Dad left me your entire house, so you need to move out immediately." He even waved around a will as proof. I just smiled and said, "Is that right?" Because what he considered as proof was fake will. I, 32 stood at the back of the funeral home watching my younger brother make a complete fool of himself, and the worst part was he had no idea what was coming. Dad had been gone for 3 days. 3 days since the heart attack took him in his sleep, 3 days since I got the call at 2 a.m., 3 days since my world shifted on its axis. The funeral had been respectful, quiet, exactly what Dad would have wanted. About 40 people showed up, neighbors, his old work buddies, a few distant cousins. Mom had passed when I was 15, so it was just me and my brother now. Or so I thought. The reception was winding down when my brother cleared his throat loudly and stepped into the center of the room. He was holding a manila folder, and there was something in his expression that made my stomach drop. Not grief, triumph. He announced that Dad had left the house to him. The entire house. The 3-bedroom colonial where we grew up, where Dad had lived for 37 years, where I'd been staying the past 6 months while going through my divorce. My brother said I needed to be out within the week, that Dad had made his wishes clear in his will, and there was nothing I could do about it. People went silent. I watched confusion ripple through the crowd. Mrs. Patterson from next door actually gasped. My brother pulled out what he claimed was the will and waved it around like a victory flag. He said Dad had always favored him, that everyone knew it, and now he had proof. He looked directly at me with this smug smile and asked if I had anything to say. I smiled back and asked if that was right. Then I excused myself and walked outside. My phone was already ringing before I reached my car. It was Jennifer, Dad's estate attorney. She'd been at the funeral but left early for another appointment. Someone had texted her about what just happened. I told her I was fine, that I'd handle it, but she insisted we meet first thing Monday morning. I agreed and hung up. The truth was simpler than my brother realized. Dad and I had gone to Jennifer's office together 4 months ago. He was updating his will after his diagnosis, early-stage heart disease that we'd been managing with medication. He wasn't dying, but he wanted things in order. I'd sat right there while he dictated everything. The house went to me. His savings were split evenly. His car went to my brother. Some specific items were designated for each of us. It was fair, measured, exactly like Dad. But my brother didn't know any of this because Dad had wanted to tell him personally. He'd planned to sit us both down after Thanksgiving. That conversation never happened. I drove home, to Dad's house, my house now, and found my brother's truck already in the driveway. He'd let himself in with his key. I found him in the living room measuring the walls with a tape measure. He said he was planning renovations, that he'd already called a contractor. He told me again I had 1 week. I asked if he'd shown the will to a lawyer. He laughed and said he didn't need to, that it was perfectly legal, that Dad had signed it, and everything. I asked when Dad had supposedly written this will. He said 6 months ago, right before I moved back in. Then he added that maybe Dad had seen how much of a failure I'd become after my divorce and decided I didn't deserve anything. That stung, but I kept my face neutral. I asked if I could see the will. He held it away and said I'd see it when his lawyer filed it with the court. Then he went back to measuring. I went upstairs to my old bedroom and called my buddy Marcus, who's a paralegal. I explained the situation without getting into specifics. He asked if I had a copy of the real will. I said the lawyer did. He told me not to panic, that fake wills get laughed out of probate court constantly, but I should document everything my brother did and said. I started a voice memo on my phone and went back downstairs. My brother was in Dad's study now, going through the desk drawers. I asked what he was looking for. He said anything valuable, that it all belonged to him now. I watched him pocket Dad's watch, the Omega that Grandpa had given Dad on his wedding day. I asked if he was really going to take that. He said it wasn't mine to worry about anymore. I took pictures. Lots of pictures. Over the weekend, my brother came by 6 more times. He brought his girlfriend once, showing her around like he was giving a tour of his new property. He measured every room, took photos, called multiple contractors for quotes. He told me he was thinking of turning my bedroom into a home gym. He asked if I'd found a new place yet. I said I was working on it. Sunday night, he texted me a list of his furniture requirements and asked me to make sure I didn't damage any walls when I moved out. I didn't respond. Monday morning, I met Jennifer at her office at 9 sharp. She had Dad's original will ready, properly notarized and witnessed, dated 4 months prior. She asked if I wanted to see my brother's fake version. I said absolutely. She'd gotten a copy from someone at the reception who'd photographed it. It was amateur hour. The signatures didn't match Dad's actual signature. The witness names were made up. Jennifer had already checked, and neither person existed in any public records. The notary stamp was from a company that went out of business 3 years ago. The language was pulled from a free online template, and whoever drafted it had left in the placeholder text in 2 spots. It literally said, "Insert beneficiary name here," at the bottom of page 2. Jennifer asked if I wanted to press charges for fraud and forgery. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to watch my brother squirm in front of a judge. But another part of me, the part that remembered him as a kid following me around the backyard, didn't want to destroy him completely. I told Jennifer to hold off on criminal charges, but to proceed with filing the real will immediately. She said she'd have it submitted to probate court that afternoon and would send my brother's lawyer a copy, if he actually had one. Turns out he didn't. Jennifer's filing hit the court system Tuesday morning, and by Tuesday afternoon, my brother was calling me nonstop. I let it go to voicemail. He left 8 messages, each one more frantic than the last. The first few were angry, accusing me of forging documents. The middle ones were confused, asking how I'd done this. The last 2 were almost pleading, asking me to call him back. I didn't. Wednesday morning, he showed up at the house at 6 a.m., pounding on the door. I let him in. He looked like he hadn't slept. He demanded to know what I'd done. I told him I hadn't done anything except file Dad's actual will, the one Dad had written with his lawyer 4 months ago, the one that was properly witnessed and notarized. He said that was impossible. He said Dad had promised him the house. I asked when Dad had promised him that. He stumbled over his words and finally admitted Dad had never explicitly promised anything, but he'd assumed because Dad had always liked him better. I asked about his will, the one he'd waved around at the funeral. Where had he gotten it? He went quiet. Then, slowly, he admitted he'd made it. He'd been desperate. He'd lost his job 2 months ago, something he'd never told Dad or me. His girlfriend was pregnant. He had credit card debt he couldn't pay. When Dad died, he saw an opportunity and took it. He genuinely thought no one would check, that I'd just accept it and move out. I asked if he understood he'd committed fraud. He started crying. He said he knew, that he'd panicked, that he didn't know what else to do. He begged me not to press charges. He said his girlfriend would leave him if he went to jail, that he'd lose everything. I told him he should have thought about that before forging a will and trying to steal my inheritance at our father's funeral. He asked what I wanted. What would it take for me to let this go? I'd been thinking about this since Monday. I told him he was going to return Dad's watch immediately. He was going to apologize to everyone who was at that reception, either in person or in writing. He was going to get his finances in order and find a real job. And he was going to pay for his own therapy, because clearly he had issues he needed to work through. In exchange, I wouldn't press criminal charges. But he was getting exactly what Dad's real will specified, half the savings and the car. Nothing more. He asked about the house. I told him the house was mine, that Dad had left it to me because I was the one who'd been there, who'd helped him after his diagnosis, who'd made sure he took his medications and went to his appointments. My brother had visited maybe once a month if we were lucky. He tried to argue that he'd been busy with work. I reminded him he'd just admitted he'd lost his job 2 months ago. He went quiet again. I asked if we had a deal. He nodded and asked when he could have the car. I said as soon as probate cleared, probably 6 to 8 weeks. Until then, he needed to stay away from the house unless I specifically invited him over. He left without another word. Update 1. It's been 2 months since the funeral. Probate went through faster than expected. Jennifer expedited it given the circumstances. My brother got his half of the savings, about $43,000, and Dad's 2019 Honda Accord. I kept the house and the other $43,000, plus some stocks and bonds Dad had tucked away. My brother did return the watch. He dropped it off in an envelope with a short note apologizing for taking it. He didn't apologize to the reception guests, though. Instead, he sent me a draft email asking me to approve it before he sent it out. The email was defensive and made excuses. I told him to rewrite it and focus on taking actual responsibility. He did, eventually. He found a job working warehouse logistics for a shipping company. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work with benefits. His girlfriend had the baby 3 weeks ago, a girl. He sent me a photo. I didn't respond, but I did start a college fund for her. She's my niece. and she didn't ask for any of this. My brother and I haven't spoken directly since that morning he came to the house. We've exchanged a few texts about probate paperwork and estate details, but nothing personal. Part of me wonders if we'll ever get back to any kind of normal relationship. Part of me doesn't care. I've been working on the house, slowly making it mine, while keeping Dad's memory alive. I repainted the living room, updated the kitchen, turned the study into a home office. I kept most of Dad's furniture and photos. Mrs. Patterson comes by every Sunday for coffee, and we talk about Dad. She told me he used to brag about me, about how proud he was that I'd gone back to school during my divorce, how I was rebuilding my life. That made me cry. I hadn't known. Update 2. Last week, my brother showed up unannounced. It was Saturday afternoon, and I was in the garage sorting through some of Dad's old tools. I heard a car door close and found him standing in the driveway holding his daughter. His girlfriend wasn't with him. He asked if he could come in. I hesitated, but said yes. We sat in the living room, the same room where he'd measured the walls 2 months ago. His daughter slept in his arms the whole time. He told me his girlfriend had left him. She'd met someone else, someone with more money and better prospects. She'd taken most of their shared belongings and moved 3 hours away. He had partial custody, every other weekend and Wednesday nights. He said he'd been going to therapy like I'd suggested. His therapist had him working through why he'd forged the will, and it went deeper than just money problems. He'd spent his whole life feeling like he was competing with me for Dad's approval and always coming up short. When Dad got sick and I moved back in, it confirmed his worst fears, that I was the son Dad really wanted around. I told him that wasn't true. Dad loved both of us. He'd split the savings evenly. The house only went to me because I was there, because I needed it after my divorce, because it made practical sense. My brother said he understood that now, but at the time, grief and desperation had twisted everything. He'd convinced himself that Dad owed him something, that the universe owed him something. The fake will was his way of taking what he thought should have been his all along. He apologized. Not the defensive, excuse-filled version from his draft email, but a real apology. He said he was ashamed of what he'd done, that he'd dishonored Dad's memory at the worst possible moment, that he destroyed my trust and probably our relationship. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, but he wanted me to know he was genuinely sorry. I asked him why he was telling me all this now. He said because his daughter deserved better than a father who let bitterness and resentment control his decisions. He wanted to break the cycle, to be someone she could be proud of. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about therapy, about his struggles with the new job, about the loneliness of single parenting. I told him about fixing up the house, about considering going back to my career, about the quiet grief that still hit me at random moments. Before he left, I asked my niece's name. He said they'd named her Claire, after Mom. I hadn't known that either. I told him he could visit again if he wanted. Not to the house necessarily, but maybe we could meet for coffee or lunch. He said he'd like that. He texted me 3 days later asking if I wanted to meet at the diner Dad used to love. I said yes. We've met there twice now. It's awkward and careful, both of us dancing around the larger issues while focusing on safe topics like work and the baby. But it's something. Maybe it's enough. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust my brother again. What he did was calculated and cruel, and it revealed something about his character I can't unsee. But I also can't ignore that he's trying, genuinely trying, to be better. And maybe that's what Dad would have wanted. Not for us to pretend it didn't happen, but for us to find a way forward despite it. The house is quiet most nights. I've started cooking Dad's recipes, the ones Mom taught him before she died. I sleep in my old bedroom because I can't bring myself to move into Dad's room yet. Sometimes I walk through the house and remember different moments. Dad teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway. The Christmas we set up the train set in the basement. The afternoon he told me Mom was sick. This house holds our entire history. My brother tried to take that from me, but he failed. And now I'm building something new here, something that honors where we came from while accepting where we are. Last Sunday, I invited Mrs. Patterson and my brother over for dinner. Mrs. Patterson brought her famous apple pie. My brother brought Claire. We ate Dad's pot roast recipe and shared stories. My brother told one I'd never heard about Dad teaching him to drive and accidentally backing into a mailbox. Mrs. Patterson told us about the time Dad had organized a neighborhood watch after a string of break-ins, even though nothing had been stolen except garden gnomes. Claire slept through most of it, but when she woke up, I held her for the first time. She had Dad's eyes. My brother noticed me noticing and smiled sadly. After they left, I sat in Dad's study, my office now, and thought about forgiveness. Not the kind where you forget what happened or pretend it didn't hurt. The kind where you acknowledge the pain, hold people accountable, and then slowly, carefully, see if there's a path forward. I don't have answers yet, but I have time, and I have this house, and maybe that's enough to start rebuilding what was broken. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real-life-based stories. Thanks in advance.